Okay, now in today's assignment, you're just doing this packet, and I'm going to mix it all the last couple days together. So your job is to solve for the x, and so here's the x on this side, make the wall. Now what's happening to x? Between the x and the 7, you have a plus sign. So you're going to do the opposite of plus, which is minus. And then 7 minus 7 is 0. So line up your equals, you have x, and that's negative 11 minus 7. So make sure you get the negative into the calculator. Minus 7, that's negative 18. Okay, that's your solution. Okay, now the next one again. Now between the 9 and the x, so again, a lot of people look at the problem, they think, oh, you got minus 9. No, the minus would be between the x and the 9 if that were the case. So I don't have a sign between the 9 and the x, so that's a multiplication. So I have multiplication happening to the x. So I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide. So that's when I make underline, because that means division. And again, I divide by negative 9. Try to avoid putting the x under the dividing line. Okay, and then negative 9 here. I know a lot of people do that, and I know it's tempting, but you want the x just to sit right there. So when I cross out these 9s, the x is by itself. Okay, so then I take negative 81 divided by negative 9, and that's 9. Okay, my next problem. I make the wall. Now what's happening to x now? There's a 6 with it. What's happening between the x and the 6? Well, there's a line drawn, so that means you have division. Okay, so I have to do the opposite of division, which is to times. So I put times and times. And since I have a 6 here, I'm going to multiply by 6 and multiply by 6. Okay, so these 6's now can cross out. Remember, when I'm dividing by 6 and multiplying by 6, they cancel. Line up your equals, you got x, and then 8 times 6 is 48. So x is equal to 48. Okay, and my next problem. Now this time we make the wall over here. Now what's happening to x? Between the x and the 6 you see a minus sign. Now it's a minus because it's actually between the x and the 6. So we do the opposite of minus, which is to plus 6. Because that will cancel. And then I go add 6 to the negative 4. So I line up my equals. And I'm going to take negative 4 plus 6. That's 2. Okay, so x is equal to 2. Okay, next page. Again, really the only way to get better at this is just by working on it a lot. Okay, get used to what you see. So you got x equals. So here's the equation. Now I've got negative 3 and x. Now what's the operation? What's happening between the x and the negative 3? There's a line drawn, so that means divide. So we need to do the opposite of divide, which is to multiply. And I'm going to multiply both sides by the negative 3. So I drop my equals, and we have negative 3 times negative 9, which is 27. Okay, then I've got x. Equals, okay, we'll put 27 right there. Okay, now this one's a little bit confusing, like it can be really confusing. So I have x on this side. Now what's happening between the 6 and the x? You have an addition sign. It's actually x and negative 6. So you're going to do the opposite of addition, which is to subtract. But when you subtract, you got to subtract negative 6. So you put a parentheses, negative 6. Then over here I go minus, and then a parentheses, negative 6. So if you're going to minus a negative number, you're going to want that parentheses right there. Okay, So again, between the 6 and the x we had addition, so I subtract, but I have to subtract negative 6. Now, a funny thing happens when you subtract a negative number. When you're minusing a negative, you're going to go plus, plus, okay? And that becomes negative 6 plus 6, which is 0. Plus, plus. So I line up my equals, and I now have x by itself, and then I take 18 plus 6. That's going to be 24. So that one was a confusing one. So again, between the x and the 6, you had addition. So you're going to minus. You're still going to minus, because the opposite of plus is to minus. But when you minus, make sure you're minusing negative 6, not just 6, because negative 6 minus 6 would not be 0. That would be negative 12. Okay, so we subtract negative 6, but when you subtract a negative, it goes to addition. Okay, next one. Here's the x, so between the 6 and the x, you don't have a sign, so that automatically means it's multiplication. So x is being multiplied, so I do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide. And I will be dividing by 6. By 6. We can cross those out. So line up your equals straight down. So on this left side, I take negative 6.6. That's a decimal. If you see a dot that I have, it's a decimal, okay? Divided by 6. Negative 1.1 equals x. Okay, my next problem. So look at the x, there's a 5 on that side. What's between the 5 and the x? A plus sign, okay? So we're going to do the opposite of plus, which is to minus. It's just a plain old 5, so I minus 5. Now if that 5 was a negative, I would minus negative 5 like I did up here, but that 5 is positive, so I just minus 5. So 5 minus 5 is 0. Drop your equals and you have x. And then I take negative 3 minus 5, and that's negative 8. And I have my solution. Look between the number and the x, what operations there. Okay. Next one, we got negative 18 equals x plus 12. Okay. So I make the line between the x and the 12, I see plus, so I'm going to minus 12 and minus 12. So I drop my equals and we have x by itself. Now remember to get 18 as a negative, okay? So negative 18 minus 12, negative 30. So x equals negative 30. Okay, now I want to change this problem right here, please. Okay. No, I don't want to change it. Rewrite it. Sorry. Okay, you're solving for x, so make your wall. So I have a 2 over there with the x. Between the x and the 2, we have a minus, so we're going to plus 2 to the negative 6. So I line up my equals. I have x all by itself. Then I'm going to take negative 6 plus 2, and that's negative 4. Okay, next one, 32 equals negative 4x. Okay, so between the 4 and the x, I don't have a sign. It means multiplication. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is to divide by negative 4. So I drop the equals, and 32 divided by negative 4 is negative 8. We have x here. So x equals negative 8. Okay. Here's where the x is. Between the x and the 8's a line, so that means you have division. The opposite of divide is to multiply. So we have 8 there, so we're going to multiply by 8 and by 8. So that crosses out, drop your equals. And we take 8 times 16, and that's going to be 128. So it's a pretty big number. Normally the answers are bigger when the x is being divided, okay? So x equals 128. Okay, next one. X minus 9 equals negative 27. So solving for x. And I want to rewrite this problem, please. Can I rewrite it for a second? Okay. I want you to rewrite it and just don't do this on the assignment. I just want to change how the problem looks. Okay, so don't overthink it. Okay, I'm just changing how the problem looks. Negative 9 plus x equals negative 27. Okay, so here's my wall. Between the x and the number, we have a plus sign. So I'm going to minus. But when I minus, I got to remember to minus negative 9. You just put a parentheses after your minus and then negative 9. You're going to put the same thing over here. But when you minus a negative number, you're actually adding the positive number. Okay, and that can cross out. Plus, plus here. So you line up your equals. Now you got x, and then I take negative 27 plus 9. That's negative 18. Okay, next problem. Okay, negative 3 equals x divided by negative 2. Okay, so again, between the x and the number, we have division, so that means I'm going to multiply by negative 2. So I drop the equals. We got x. Negative 3 times negative 2 is going to be 6. And that's your answer. X equals 6. Okay, then the next one. Between 2 and x, I don't see a sign, so that would be multiplication. Okay, so the opposite of multiplication is to divide. Negative 2, negative 2. Okay, so over here I divide negative 14 by negative 2. Dividing two negatives make a positive. Two negatives make a positive in a multiplication or division. Okay, then the last one. Between the x and the 8, it's a plus sign, so the opposite of plus is to minus. Okay, so I'm going to minus 8 and minus 8. So I drop my equals, you got x, and then I will be taking negative 4 minus 8, and that's negative 12. Okay, now on the assignment, okay, it's pretty standard, but can you go to the back page, please, number 15, okay? Now remember, you got a plus between them, so you're going to be minusing, but when you write minus, you got to put the negative 8 in parentheses after it. That's going to turn into a plus problem, okay? So try best you can on that. I know those are confusing, but between here you got a plus, so you're going to minus, and you're going to minus negative 8 from both sides.